Welcome to the Earth Intuitive Podcast, a hub for sensitive and intuitive women to feel comforted, supported, and whole in their healing journey. Through a blend of energetic updates and Ayurvedic holistic health themes with a focus on sensitivity, we find wholeness through mind, body, spirit medicine in a community of women who feel it all. I'm your hostess, Brittany Nelson, Ayurvedic health counselor, yoga teacher, and highly sensitive soul. Hey everyone, if you're an artist, if you are a healer, if you're a mystical person, if you've suffered with chronic illness, you are gonna definitely want to check out this episode. This has been one of my favorites so far. This is with Delana Luna. She is an artist and a maker of magical objects for practitioners to enhance their power. She's worked as a creative and spiritual consultant, and she's worked with a school called the Soul Path Institute, dealing with a million different flavors of how awakening happens. I mentioned it in the podcast, but she feels like a fairy godmother to activate your spiritual gifts. And she creates beautiful, beautiful pieces of art, of wearable art. And I have some photographs of her things and her beautiful offerings in my Instagram post for this episode. So before we dive into the episode, we had to do two different recordings. I was having some internet issues, and so there's just a couple little jumps, but overall, it's a beautiful conversation. You might notice toward the end, I have more of a cold, which I'm still getting over right now. But if you want to work with her, check out the show notes for all her links, her Instagram, and I can't wait to dive into this episode. Hi, Delana Luna. How are you?
Hi, I am well. Got a nice little bit of end of day sunshine, and I did an art project this afternoon that turned out beautiful.
Oh, I love that. Do you want to tell us more about that? What was the art project?
Oh, I finished a cushion. So I'm doing all hand sewing at the moment from recycled fabrics, and I got a wool skin. So like it was the wool, but it still had the beautiful skin attached to it as well, like the soft suede on the other side. And I made a cushion, but it's some Swedish wool, so it was not like anything that I've ever seen before. So it was this gorgeous, like starlight grey curls. And then I made a beautiful linen back for it, and it just turned out really neat and perfect.
Beautiful. And I want to also touch in because I'm here in the Pacific Northwest. It's like in the morning here, and you are in the north of Sweden and it's in the evening, but it looks like it's noon there because of the light. And I know we were talking about when we first met about this midnight sun. Do you want to just chat about that for a second? Because I think it's so interesting and beautiful that so many of us don't experience.
Yeah, it's a pretty unreal experience, especially if you're not used to anything like that. And last year was the first time that I came up and was in the thick of summer. Like right now, is kind of moody and cool, and I'm into it. But the midnight sun can be intensely bizarre because the sun will, it sort of teases you. It's like it's going to set and then it comes back. And then if you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's like 9, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, middle of the day, right? And sometimes even brighter than that. And the rest of the world, like nature, knows that it's time to be asleep, but it's the ugly lights are on. And at about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, if you go out, there's this sort of like shimmer that happens in the air, almost like a heat wave. And it seems very witchy and very magical, but it's also disorientating.
Yeah, I bet. I can only
Yeah.
imagine. Does it, as an HSP, and we'll get into that in a little bit, does that affect your sleep? Does it affect your mood? Does it affect like what you're creating with your art? Like how does it affect you, this midnight sun?
Yeah, for sure. All of those things. Like sometimes you seem like you just want to embrace the wake spirit and stay up all night. You're like, bugger it, whatever. I could just start a whole new project now. And then your body's trying to tell you that you're tired and your eyes are telling you something else. And you have to go through all of these rituals when you want to go to sleep that are about honoring the dark, about trying to get that space, that little womb for yourself so that you can have that really regenerative, oh my God.
I know what you mean.
You got
I got
it.
it.
Um, and on the other hand, I find it very spiritual, like it's very charging, but it can be really easy to get exhausted. So, you know, it doesn't happen in many places in the world. So I guess it was just a completely new phenomena that I had to find my way around.
Hmm. So cool. So talking about going back, the HSP journey, and I feel like there's so many things about being a sensitive that you sort of have to go through this hero's journey. Like you might grow up different than your peers, than your siblings, or you might be the black sheep of your family, or you struggle with different like physical or sensory things that it's hard to relate to other people. And that can come with a lot of challenges. And I know that, many people I've followed that are sensitives that are now doing big work in the world. A lot of them had or have chronic illness or pain or something that they're dealing with. And so being a sensitive is beautiful and it's very challenging as well. And I really see it as this hero's journey to overcome the challenges, not necessarily that they're all gone, but that you're able to harness the gifts more than the challenges, most of the time at least. So I'd love to hear just a little bit of your journey of like how you came to be where you are, the work in the world you're doing right now. Like, what's kind of your origin story that you want to share with us?
Well, I was sensitive, since day dot. So that was my natural state when I was a little kid. And I learnt over a period of time. And, this is a very, very common story for people that are, like starry little babies and are just, casually down the bottom of the garden talking to the fairies. You learn that there's only certain people that you can say certain things to. And through teenage years, it became very clear to me that some of that information was frightening to other people. And, I mean, some people would find it fascinating, but in any way, these polarizing reactions that people would have to you made you feel very other than. So it was very isolating, and you learn to guard yourself. And when you learn to guard yourself, what happens is that you shut yourself off from your clair abilities, so from your extrasensory stuff. You keep them close, and I think that that's got a lot to do with the physical problems that I've had as well. It's been like a calcification over trying to protect my magic. And I guess the most recent thing that happened was that I was doing my PhD. I had Kundalini awakening, as in like actual Shakti energy moving through me, so pushing out trauma. So I also had a chronic pain condition, all of these mysterious, all of these things happened at once. I had this massive convergence. And it became completely impossible to ignore. And at that time, I was also I'd cut off all communication with my family, and it was COVID. So I had this, time to isolate. Yeah, it was like everything that could happen was happening, and I had this time to incubate. And because I cut myself off from all of these toxic relationships in my life, it was like my body just went, yay, we can do this now. And I went on a massive roller coaster, which was liberating and terrifying, because you have to go through all of your own stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not just other people. When you start to shut yourself off from your own uh, integrity, you make really weird decisions, and things that you're not particularly proud of. And then once you start moving back into being a sensitive person and your integrity wants to take the front seat, you have to go through. I mean, I would have 24-hour periods of time during my awakening where I couldn't do anything except for be completely overwhelmed by emotions and lie in my bed. And it's a huge processing toll. And during that period of time, So I was working as a spiritual consultant. I was working with two teachers on my own gifts, and one of them was for runic work with my Nordic heritage, and it was like a tidal wave. So I was learning all of this information, and as I was learning things, some of these things were actually happening to me. So it was all very connected, and I learned about this concept of having a personal task and a world task. And when you complete your personal task, it opens you up to fulfill your world task. So my personal task was to be an ancestral chain breaker for my family group. And I think it goes back a very, very long time. And I'm very much, as you mentioned, the black sheep of the family, like definite sore thumb. And after I really leaned into doing that, which was very difficult for me, because ever since I was a child, I had this notion in my mind that I was supposed to, that I was on earth to fix my family. That was my job, right? My self-appointed job. And it's true, but it happened from me actually separating myself from it. So because I've got abandonment issues in a lot of different ways, like from society, parental, and social, actually deciding to isolate myself on purpose and work on relational things was, in one way, the most frightening thing that I could do. And when I did that, afterwards, what happened was that my spiritual experiences were getting really, really intensified. I was talking to lots of higher consciousness beings. I was having really, oh my goodness, I hate all of this modern jargon that we've got to talk about this, but it leveled up, it activated, to use those words. And through that period of time, it became very clear to me that there were things that I had done since childhood that were focused through myself as an artist, and even intensified going through the process of my PhD, because I really got to lean into the examination of that process, that all of the threads joined together into me discovering that I make these magical objects. And the way that it was revealed to me was almost like reading a myth of my own life.
Wow. That's so beautiful. When that was kind of revealed to you, were you in a place of like, I need to figure out what I'm going to do in this life or my career? Or was it something that kind of just like came through super strong and you just couldn't ignore it and you weren't really looking for? How did that work?
Well, at the time, it was hard because I could only day by day. So when you've got a chronic illness, it's like, oh, I did the shopping today. Hooray.
Yeah.
That's it. So, I mean, there was one really, really pivotal moment when I was doing way too much work at once. And I did a past life regression meditation that was just part of another course that I was doing. And all of these things joined together in that meditation experience. And I saw an image of myself as a smith. I keep on hesitating because I'm like, you're going to sound crazy, but I'm not going to sound crazy to you.
We need more of this. I literally saw a post yesterday that was like, in a world of AI speech and AI writing, like we need to be weird. We need to be out there. Like the world needs more of this authenticity. So please keep going.
Amazing. Yeah, it took me to like a vision or an experience of myself as sort of like Yeah, I guess there was kind of like a Norse flavor to it. I mean, it was almost like being a dwarf, like I went down into a cavern and I saw this past life version of myself that could make these amazing things. And obviously the dwarves in Norse myth have these, incredible craftsman abilities. And it showed me moments from my childhood and just highlighted certain gifts that I have and how those things join together for me to be able to create these magical objects. And then I'd been, like almost getting it my whole life, but not quite putting all of the bits together. And because when higher consciousness beings or even our higher self or dreams even, right? They all speak to you through symbols. So it wasn't like, actually reading a story. It was, using my claircognizance that from seeing this vision, I understood on these, layers, what that was supposed to mean. And then the next day, when I went out to my workshop, I could do things, like physically do things with my hands that I'd never been able to do before. So I started carving out of bone and making things that weren't just the enhancement of something that was already there. I was making whole things. And I mean, on my website, you can see the ceremonial knife that I've made out of a antler and a piece of oak. And I just I don't know how I suddenly had the skill to do it. Well, I do. It's because of this past life activation. And then I started working on some new rune sets, and the way that, because I was doing it with such intentionality, the beauty that these things were being made with was really a lot of pleasure, right? And it really felt like, okay, you are supposed to be doing this because all of a sudden you're making these beautiful, beautiful things. I mean, I won't say that I was a bad artist before or anything like that, but it turned into this new level that I was extremely proud of what it is that I was making. And at that point in time, Odin came to visit me. So it was like I had remembered this past life and remembered these skills. And it was like I had shown up. It's like if he was in his Odin cave, in front on his own computer, and then a little light lit up, like, this one's ready now, kind of thing. And so he came down to look at what I was doing in my workshop. And after that day, I had access to something that I call the Odin consciousness, so that when I'm making things, I can think about things and I can use my clairvoyance and my claircognizance to ask questions, and it will give me information about what it is that I'm doing just by thinking about it, because I've been given access to this knowledge.
And for those who don't know Odin, can you explain who Odin is?
Sure. So Odin is the All-Father. So he's like the big head honcho. Well, he's presented as the big head honcho of Nordic Norse mythology. And
Gotcha.
the more I've researched into it, the more that's a very patriarchal way of presenting that whole pantheon. And there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on. But the being that came to visit me that day was most definitely Odin.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And one of the best things that's ever happened to me in my whole entire life, then I don't know if it was like exactly the next day, but within a week of that experience, 2 baby ravens came to my backyard, and they stayed with me until they had babies of their own, and then they brought me their babies. And okay, so yes, for people listening, the significance of that is that Odin has 2 ravens that sit on his shoulders. So, and they are thought and memory, and it's something that's very, very strongly associated with him. And I felt like they were sent to or for many different reasons, but so that he could watch over me.
Wow, that's so beautiful.
It really freaked me out.
Yeah. Raven is one of my main spirit animals. I've got a big raven and roses tattooed on my arm.
Amazing.
And they were the
I'll
raven.
send you a picture.
Yeah,
I've got,
please do. I would love
yeah.
to see. But yeah, the raven would like swarms of them, 30 of them would follow me around at my car until I got this tattoo. It's like they wanted me to get this tattoo, and then after that they kind of left me alone a little bit more. But
Well,
yeah,
and again, it's the symbology, right? Like
right.
there's more to it.
Yeah,
And
and
I
there's some.
feel,
Yeah,
sorry.
that's okay. No, there's so many ways to, everybody has their own relationship with every being, right? With people, with plants, with animals. So there's so many different definitions of what a raven might signify. But for me, one of the main ones was just like ancestry and higher beings and wiser beings, like really ushering me and activating me into my own gifts and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's beautiful to hear that, and that's so cool to hear the connection of the story and the myth and what that represented. That's so cool.
Yeah, I mean it's been a wild, crazy ride. I feel like my whole life, all of the spiritual experiences have all been fairly full on, but that one was one of the times that I mean, when he was standing underneath the tree in the backyard watching me, I found it hard to breathe,
Mm,
So it's like I didn't feel like in danger,
right.
but it was something that had a mind that was much larger than mine.
Yeah.
So
Wow. That's so beautiful. Yeah, definitely send a picture if you have it. Would love to see that.
yeah, I do. I've got a picture of them when they were babies, and then when they bought me their babies. I've
Oh,
got
that is so
pictures of that.
special. Yes, we'll share that for everyone who's checking it out. You could just check out my Instagram. I'll share the photo when this podcast comes out.
That's a good idea.
Beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about, those of the folks that are listening to this and, maybe they are starting to discover their own gifts, or maybe they know of their gifts, but they're having a hard time putting it out there. Or there's a lot, and you spoke to something earlier that really struck a chord with me, and you said it so succinctly. And it's this concept that I've been carrying in my own body, which is, having physical symptoms because I'm not fully sharing my gifts, or I'm not fully showing up. And I've had this with me for many, many years. And I think it's a really common thing for sensitive to experience, whether they have chronic illness or physical stuff, or they just have mental stuff that happens a lot, like, the self-doubt. I do think that our world is becoming a lot more open and accepting of a lot of these things, but there's still stigma there. And so what would if there's someone who's kind of in that process of really like kind of discovering their gifts and getting over just being in the challenge of being insensitive and really stepping more into the gifts and the beauty that come from it, like, is there anything ringing a bell for you to speak on to those people who are in that journey right now, who might be struggling
Yeah,
a little
for
bit?
sure. For
Yeah.
sure. I mean, two major things is that something that happened for me that was kind of earth-shattering when I was first learning about being a sensitive, that there was actually a definition that you can divide it up into all of these different pieces, that lots of other people have had this experience. I had this moment where I realized that the intensity of my overwhelm was also a mirror reflection of the depth of my power.
Mm,
So it was an exact frequency. It was showing me that you are this sensitive, which actually, when you go, to the flip side, means you are this power. The second thing that I find a real perception shift for the whole experience is that the things that are happening in your body, your pain, and your trauma actually show you where your gifts are. So they're indicators, they're messages, they're alert buttons. So they're not things that you need to shy away from. They're things that you can actually move into, because once you have solved that, so I mean, it's all about healing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the more you move into these different modalities of healing and pay attention to what's happening to you, you will realize that your worst pain is a smoke screen, is a scab, is a layer of protective fat, whatever, over your gift.
Mm. Wow.
So yeah, they're all sitting in you. And I mean, sometimes they can be really damaged and it needs a lot of work. And sometimes your poor little, like physical being can be so damaged that you got to have an operation or go to the doctor or whatever, because that toxin has been building up for a really long time. But trauma, and this is such a weird thing to say, sorry, but it's, in a way, when you're strong enough to go from victim to healing, trauma is actually your friend. It's like the monster that has been trying to defend you, that your protective mechanisms are what makes that trauma stick in your body. And when your gifts are opening up, it's literally a roadmap.
Mm. That's so beautiful. I've always kind of like intuitively felt that and known that on a deep level, but I've never really heard anyone speak it out loud. So the fact that
Really?
yeah. I mean,
Huh.
maybe I have here and there, like in little bits, like reading stuff or hearing stuff, but like having a conversation with someone else, I've never really heard someone put it into those words quite like that. So it's so helpful for people because I think something that I know I struggle with is if I'm woken up in the middle of the night, like I was having a tiny flare up last night with some chronic issues. Um, I know deep down that it's a part of my journey, that I'm meant to go through this. It doesn't have to be bad. But I think the human part of me is like, go away. I want to go to sleep. This needs to be fixed,
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like this pushing away, which is, what we resist persists, right? So that's such a beautiful thing to look at. And it can be hard because
It
we,
is hard. That's
yeah,
what I wanted to say as well. Like it's not easy.
right.
I
Not
don't
at
think
all.
I don't think any of it is easy, and sometimes it's not simple either.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what would you recommend for people who, let's say they are going through a lot of health stuff or mental health stuff or, self-doubt or whatever it is they're journeying through and they're not yet being able to see or even just realize their gifts? Like, how would you help encourage them to keep that faith? Because I feel like it really involves have having a lot of faith in what's to come for them, like having that vision, having that hope or whatever you want to say. Like, what are some ways that people can keep going and find more ease through this difficult process?
Well, to realize that it's temporary,
Mm-hmm.
and because it's temporary, health comes first. Mental health and physical health, and as much as you can, cut anything out that is not helping you be healthy, and get ruthless about it. And once you start to carve a little bit of space for yourself, and it's always health comes first, don't, no obligation, don't, push yourself, no pushing, always more gentle, more gentle.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll start to notice, oh, hang on, I don't like that either. Oh, my job really bums me out because I let this lady talk, like this to me. And that's because of blah, 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 blah when I was a child. And you'll just see this cascade effect. And the more you practice on you always, being comfy and safe, the more you're going to be able to deal with these things, because they're going to keep coming for ages, like maybe for the rest of your life. I don't know. But you will also notice that you're doing a lot of things for, love and belonging, for a sense of acceptance that you don't actually need. They're not working for you, they're working against you. And something else that will start to happen at that point in time is that you will be able to speak to these things. So you will be able to talk to your body and you'll be able to say, okay, I have this pain and it's super annoying. Can you please communicate with me, body? What is this pain about?
Yeah.
So, I'm ready to go there now. And just always remembering to champion yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Treat yourself like you would treat a friend. Start speaking to other people how you would want somebody to defend you. So I guess I'm also talking about courage, gentleness and courage. And get a teacher, start reading books, not too much watching videos, I don't think. Some guidance, and find somebody that works for you. And remember, again, that's also going to be temporary. That one person isn't going to fix everything about you for the rest of your life.
Right.
It's about you gaining more and more empowerment and autonomy.
Yeah.
With your own experience.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. I feel like you have this like fairy godmother energy of just like championing other
Yes.
people to activate their gifts and to be that reassuring person. Anyway, so yeah, this is such rich content because so many people feel alone in this journey. Or what I see a lot is, no shame or anything, but some people that I see their potential, it's like they don't quite go there 100% because maybe they were raised in a society that just completely rejected those things, or they're not willing to be courageous enough to really go there. And I think what you were talking about is that balance of being gentle with yourself, but you also have to be really courageous. Like, again, I do see this as like a hero's journey. Not a lot of people were meant to walk this path. And so it's like I almost see it as like a warrior, like some sort of a spiritual warrior or warrior for your lineage,
Yeah.
or what have you. And it's a really crazy journey. And so to the outside person, it might look like, oh, this person has to like say no to a lot of things. They might look more fragile, but it's really the opposite. It's like people who are walking this journey are incredibly strong because of what they go through. And to come out on the other side and be able to help other people is just so beautiful,
Yeah. It actually reminds me of this conversation that I had when I was traveling with a woman in Greece. And I said to her, this was when I was really championing my sensitivity and I didn't have any inhibition about expressing it. And I said to her, no, I can't do that. And I don't want to do that. And can we change this? Because I'm too sensitive to deal with it otherwise. And she turned around to me and said, oh, I'd hate to have to live like that. One thing that my dad always said about me was you could take whatever her name was and drop her anywhere in the world and she'll be able to adapt to anything. And there was a little bit of shame, in what she was saying, that I should be able to just suck it up, or that being adaptable was the preferential way to be. And I was really surprised myself, like I was so pleased with myself in that moment that I said to her, I don't have any desire to use my strength and resilience to accept toxic situations.
Yeah.
And it just came out of me. And I was like, oh my God, look at my growth.
Love it. It's so good. So good. Yeah. And not everybody's going to understand. And I think a lot of us are meant to be the only person in our family like this, because you don't need a bunch of us in one place. Like, we need people sensitive, like kind of spread around, like sprinkled around to help their family, their community, whatever. It's, I think that's how it's meant to be. And so of course we can come together as community and support each other, but it's not always going to be the case, especially in your family of origin or what have you. And so, yeah, not everyone's going to understand. And I think people, just have to kind of accept that they're going to be a little bit on the outskirts. Of course, we all want belonging. We all want to feel like we belong and have those roots, and that's really important. But just to, be self-assured enough in yourself to let you be you, and it can be hard. There's a lot of tests along the way with, people testing who you really are or questioning you or whatever, but you just stand firm in who you are. And I think that even that piece right there is a journey in itself, um, just that sense.
Yeah, I mean, even knowing who you are,
Right.
yes,
Right.
it can be huge. And then depending on how you look at that and what you value, you change,
Mhm.
And so it's I mean, growing up, turning into an adult that's not an adult in the same way that your parents were, or that a local political leader is, or that a whole generation of people maybe are, there's no way forward, you know? Like you're trailblazing, and you try and look around you for I mean, even role models can be hard to find.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's yeah, it's constantly challenging, which is why I think that you need to remember to be very, very gentle with yourself, because you can have that critic can get in,
Mhm.
and you'll go down that path of the completely inappropriate negative self-talk that becomes so, normalized that your sense of self is lost.
Yeah.
It's dictated by this, negative voice that you have in your head that, unfortunately, because you're a sensitive, you can hear, feel, know very deeply.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one. I'm wondering if there are tools that you use. I know for myself, tarot has been a huge tool to help me get through this and to give me more clarity about things over the years. That's been one of my main tools. Do you have any specific tools that you use for yourself or for other people? Or does it just kind of come through as like a vision or meditation, or
Well,
how do
I've done a
you?
lot of
Yeah.
study. I've
Mm-hmm.
done a lot of study with different teachers, and so they've got their own things that I've, found very, very useful. And that's when I truly started to accelerate, was when I took teachers, when I actually started studying.
Yeah.
And because I've got a big scholar in me, and I always have, that side of me is very, very satisfied. I do and have used tarot since I was 14.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I like thinking about that on many different levels, like a way to communicate to your higher self, a way to communicate to higher consciousness beings, a way to understand symbology, a way to test how awake you are on a certain day. And just as a mind exercise, as a little bit of a game, I think that something that I've always utilized since I was a very, very young child is in terms of my clairsentience. When I get confused in a situation, I will just feel my way through it. And even if it's something that maybe I don't want to do, a way that I don't really want to go, if that way feels clear, or it doesn't have that, churning, black and yellow snakes in your belly kind of feeling, that that's, the high road, that's the way that you have to go. And that's been very, very useful to me, because in my 20s and 30s, I would look at other people's decision-making processes, and then how much shame they would experience afterwards. And I would think to myself, do you not have that little guy inside you that says, don't go that way?
Maybe they do, but they're not listening to it, right? That's a
Well,
whole
I
other
think it's a
thing.
practice.
Yeah.
I think they're all skills.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I mean, for me, that's been a very, very useful tool is listening to my interior yes and no and balancing things about how they appear through my subtle channels, through my clair abilities, as well as logic and perception and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's so cool. So how did you come about, obviously you've been an artist, sounds like most of your life, and then,
Yeah.
channeling this art. How did you kind of transfer from I'm making art to I'm making art for other practitioners now? Like, how did that come through? Was it just a natural process or?
Well, I guess there are certain things about myself or my identity as an artist that I've always been curious about and that I've always been proud of. And one of them was my ability to find what I used to call talismanic objects. So while I was focused on something called superfiction, as an interdisciplinary artist, I would describe my penchant, my uh, I can't think of the right word, obsession almost with these talismanic objects. And then joining them together would make like a Voltron. So you would take all of these things, and then when you worked them together, they turned into something very powerful. And then when I realized that what I really wanted to express out of what I was making was things that always had a true spiritual story. I didn't want them to be fictitious pieces anymore. I wanted to say, no, I've made this smoke wand out of seagull and tern feathers, and I found this piece of driftwood that already had a whale on it. So I just, carved it out and filled it with copper. All of these things are chosen on purpose. Driftwood is symbolic in a certain way. Those birds were symbolic in a certain way. The whale wanted to make itself known. And when you join all of those things together, and I started listening, and then spirit was of what I was making was for a sea witch to be able, and it needed those birds and it needed the whale, and I wasn't going to write a story about it afterwards and give it a fictitious history. Something that I was speaking to somebody else about today is that even though I've been trained as an energy healer, for probably 3 or 4 years I was training, I always knew when I was doing it that I wasn't supposed to then go and be a healer. I was supposed to take all of that knowledge and use it to amplify my artwork. So the objects that I make, the process that I go through with somebody, it will be healing for them because that's the basis of anything spiritual is that you heal and you grow. Um, and it enhances what it is that they're doing. So it's specifically made for them and something that they get to use for the rest of their life, and hopefully something that becomes so indicative and personalized to that person that they can pass it on, that it becomes an heirloom object.
Hmm. Hmm. I love that. And I feel like spirituality, energy work, and art. Like, yes, they're two separate things, but they really are intertwined, and I feel like it
Yeah.
attracts the same type of person. Do you want to speak to like, I don't know, anything that's coming up around the two together and how like what is that space that we enter
Well,
into when we're going into those realms?
I spent the period of my PhD, which overlapped with my Kundalini awakening, looking at this. So I was looking at superfiction and what I was calling shamanism at the time. I wouldn't call it shamanism now because I think that that relates to a very, very specific group of people. So I've started calling it mysticism, but it's spirituality. So how I came to spirit-led artwork was going through a PhD process of taking a conceptual artwork concept and looking at mysticism and medicine from a lot of different cultures and finding the crossover. And it was very much in the brain and in the spirit. And everybody, I think anybody that is an artist automatically talks about spiritual things. I'm going to put it like that. Like you will talk about being in the flow or having an aha moment or an epiphany, a revelation, whatever, or you will go into a uh, non-linear kind of like cyclical form of problem solving where you cross in between the two hemispheres of the brain. And that I think that that's just something that comes really, really naturally to creative people. And then when I was looking at it, there were a lot of crossovers in between people that were specifically spending their time being the person within a village, a society, whatever, that was uh, and different from the psychopomp, so nothing to do with religion, but that was guiding people spiritually. Like, so the similarity between them and what a lot of artists do has to do with a perception shift. So you're creating something with your hands, your mind, obviously, because that's where ideas come from, but you're making it into something material. So you're, weaving the ether and you're anchoring it in a point. But within that thing that you've made, there is all of this stuff around it, and it's not always conceptual because sometimes it is just spiritual. Sometimes it's just supposed to be thought provoking. And I know that there is also, a very common thing about like, that it's in the eye of the beholder and everybody takes what they want from a painting or whatever. But there's also common themes because it has to do with association, with symbology, and it speaks of itself, especially if it's, a successful artwork. And I think that those things are inherently exist within one another. So when you're doing either one of them intentionally, you end up with something very powerful and
Mm-hmm.
sentient.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's so, it's almost like we're people that work in these realms. It's like we're ether travelers and we go somewhere else and we bring it into this physical plane. And whether that's art or it's energy work or written word or whatever it is, there's some sort of anchoring. I love that word. And that's really what you do with your, beautiful arts that you make. So do you want to give us some examples of some of the things that you create and maybe we can even provide some photos if you have it, but just like,
Yeah, I mean, I've got
yeah,
plenty of photos.
yeah.
Um, I've really enjoyed at the moment making ceremonial robes because it's
Mm,
been a um a way for me to express my love that has always been there of fashion. And I don't mean fashion as in high fashion, I mean outfits. I mean showing your mood and style through, the way that you get to do yourself up, and I think that for me, in an ideal world, everybody would be able to walk around sort of cosplaying all the time, but it wouldn't be cosplay, it would just be clothes. um, and I love how when I first started making what were intentionally ceremonial robes for my PhD project, that I felt really connected to um, things that were important to me and what were past life experiences. Sorry, I'm umming and ahhing because I'm like, oh, that sounds crazy, but it's okay. I'm just gonna sound
all
crazy.
welcome here.
It was very deeply connected to some past life remembrances, we'll call them, as I was sewing, and that's why I've tended towards using all recycled and found materials. And again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about me being able to find these objects that have a high chi. So I know that a lot of people at the moment are having this discussion about thrifted things being dangerous because they carry, energy, blah, 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 blah. Everything carries energy. And definitely one of the things that I'm good at is picking out the things that have great or neutral energy,
Mhm.
because things speak to me. And we spoke about, we touched on this earlier as well, that everything to me has a voice and a life.
Yeah.
So all of the things that I pick are talking to me. They're saying, pick me.
Mhm.
And so when I go into an op shop, because I'm living very minimally, I don't want to buy clothes for myself. I don't want to collect things, I can't carry any more things. So I was turning them into things for other people. And one of the things that really appealed to me was to make them heavily ornate. And so I started doing this crazy beading and just doubling and tripling down on the thing that I was making. So at certain stages, it might be done, but then I'm like, oh, I've got this whole other collection of things that are also asking to be part of the robe. And because I want it to be a successful artwork, I then had to work out a way to go, layers and layers and layers on top. I guess as I'm saying this, it reminds me of somebody doing an oil painting,
Mhm.
because the paint stays malleable and they get to decide when they stop, when it's done.
Yeah.
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 So,
Wow.
yeah. And other than that, the sculptures that I make are usually from natural things that I find, and they speak to me through the process about what it is that they are and what they need to be used for.
Mhm. Wow. And so, do you make everything custom for people, or do you have like some things that you just sell on its own?
Oh, well, things are busting to be made. So
Mhm.
I make them knowing that there's somebody out there that's going to see it and be like, that is perfect for me. And they're going to know that it's perfect for them because they'll recognize it when they see it. But also, if I speak about it, or if I say that this is for, that as I was making it, it's for a particular practitioner. Because they're going to fit the mold of somebody that practices, in this certain way, in this style, whatever, it's going to mean more to them. It's I hope that some people will have such a uh, rush of resonance with the object or with the robe that they'll know that I made it for them.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And how have you seen, not that there needs to be proof or anything, but like, what do you notice about when practitioners wear their robes or they have their item? Like, do you feel like it just helps to remind them of their power? Or what do you think is like the biggest, like, end result of having this beautiful object with them?
Well, nobody's ever asked me that before. Um, I'm going to say yes.
Mhm.
When you Because the point within any kind of traditional mysticism, when you are making a robe, you're channeling associative and symbolic power, and you're usually making it for yourself. And that's why on my website, in working with me, I say, let me be your hands, because I think that things are so divided now that a lot of people are moving into the healing realm, and they're not necessarily artists. They don't want to sit down and sew a robe or whatever. So I feel like I am the other end of that, where I don't want to go into energy healing purely. I just want to make the things. So we're kind of, creating this new societal symbiosis. And I do think that the weight of it, the fact that it's ornate, and the fact that it's full of symbology for them, yes, reminds them of their own power. But I also see it act as a conduit. That How can I explain this? It's like when you do a tarot reading for somebody, fortune card, I Ching, runes, whatever, you're speaking to the person and you're using words, but you're also involving your higher self, you're involving your guides, their guides, and there's a lot more going on outside of the realm of what your little human brain is doing right now,
Mhm.
and that's all attached to the object.
Mhm.
And when they've gone through the process of the activation meditation and it exists in the liminal space as well as in the material plane, every time they wear it, every time they use it, it grows.
Mm.
So it's going to become uh, more powerful, but more have an essence of itself through being used by that person, which is why I'm saying that I really hope that the end game is that they get passed on to, you know, some witchy niece or nephew or son or daughter, and that it then gathers layers in its personality through being used by different practitioners.
Absolutely. And I'm pretty sure there was, I could be totally wrong. I haven't read Harry Potter in a while, but I feel like finding a hat or something was like the whole start of the journey of Harry, like finding his magic. And I know for myself, when I visualize like my future self, I always see her in like ornate clothing. Like it's like we live in a very materialistic, visual space. That's just where we are. And so that those pieces of clothing, the items can really ground us into like that state of being and that state of mind. I think
For
it's
sure.
really powerful and it's not talked about enough. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the whole point of ritual, really, isn't it? You know, you get to play with something and move through space in a certain way. And it's lovely when you have a regular practice, it doesn't matter what it is, that you start wanting for yourself the nicest of, you know, whatever it is that you're using. So if you're working with herbs, you want a really nice mortar and pestle, you know what I mean? You don't want something that will just do.
Right.
And you know, when you get to the point where you can walk into your ritual space and, you know, on top of that, what you're wearing, but the objects that you're using are all chosen, you know, they're all specials. And yeah, I mean, I guess it's the same as having a signature piece of clothing, isn't it? You know, you wear that when you're really feeling like yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So beautiful. How can people find you and find your art and your items?
I have a shop on a alternate platform called Fay Home, and actually, would love it if you would put the link for that up because it's so
Yeah.
cool. It's got so many witchy shops up there, but she really needs the publicity.
Yeah.
So I'm holding off on the moment from going to a larger platform.
Hmm.
And so I've only just opened the shop with her, and I'm trying to be really, really loyal. So it would be awesome if people could go and look. And, you know, there's so much other stuff there, especially since it doesn't seem like any of the larger platforms are actually protecting people from AI. So,
Yeah.
you know, I would hate to see a Temu version of one of my jackets. It would be
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
Oh my God.
So there's a shop on Fayhome. I've got my own website, which I'm constantly, you know, working to update because I'm making more and doing more than I can possibly put up. Like for example, yesterday I'm here doing farm work and helping for a handpan festival in Norway for a handpan maker, and he was wearing one of my robes yesterday when we did a
Oh,
video, and it will probably take me a month to get that up on the
yeah.
website, you know.
So cool.
And Instagram, Facebook, everywhere.
Cool. Awesome. Anything else you want to add about anything you're offering? Any last words of wisdom around this? I think this is going to be such a cool podcast because it's kind of out of the ordinary. But if you think about it, it's like we need these pieces to just help us remember and to help us anchor into like what we're here to do. And having that physical representation is so beautiful.
That's lovely. Thank you, because I
Yeah.
enjoy making them so much. Like it's
Yeah.
so what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Um, I guess the only other thing that I would mention is that I've been doing these little one-off sessions lately because I've just been responding to people's posts on threads. And I've been helping people either identify spirits that they've had an experience with, so using my clairvoyance, which is getting more and more all the time, and then using my claircognizance to research. And I've been able to have these beautiful experiences with people where I can sort of travel back in time with them, go into that experience, and then find what this spirit was that was trying to communicate with them at the time. And then it opens up for them and they're able to communicate with this thing that was trying to get their attention. So it's just kind of like a little um uh not a side quest. It's like a new little nodule of something that obviously I could do all along,
Yeah.
but is turning into a session that I offer. And the other just little bite-sized thing has been helping people find their first step. So I call it spiritual orientation. So they just talk to me about all the weird shit that's happening to them. And I've designed a tarot reading that we do in the session. And then I help them find their next person.
Mm.
So they can either go and read texts, or we research together and we find the appropriate healer, because maybe they need to go somatic first, maybe they need to go to therapy. So we just kind of work out what their first step on the path is.
Oh, I love it. Your offerings just remind me of just like magic school. Like it's so beautiful, so unique, and it's
Yay!
so needed.
Hooray!
I love it.
My life
So,
is complete.
so if people want to work with you, would they just reach out on your website
Yep.
for that?
On Threads and on Instagram, you can find the little like one shot offerings, and it will be up on my website soon. And if you want to go through the website now, you can always just go to the book a tarot reading, but
Mhm.
then say in the subject line that you want a spiritual orientation session. Anyway, I'm pretty old school about how I do stuff, so just
Yeah.
message me on Instagram, write me an email, and tell me what you want, and we'll go from there. I'm not, so massive that I'm that precious about my time. I've got time for
Yeah.
people.
Oh, thank you so much. It was so awesome to have you on here. I can't wait to get this podcast up. Thank you so much, Delana Luna, for being on the podcast. It was such a treat. If you're listening to this, you want to look at her beautiful sacred wearable art. If you want to hit her up for a little bit of a spiritual fairy godmother session, that's just my own spin on it, you can reach out to her Instagram or her website. All of that information is inside the show notes. Loved having you on, and I just love talking to beautiful, mystical, magical people, and just how much it can enhance our life, our health, and everything else. If you're curious about my own work with Ayurvedic health counseling, head to earthintuitive.com. Feel free to share this episode, give it some love. We're really working hard to help this podcast grow as it's still new. So leave a review, send it to a friend, share it in your Instagram stories. We would really, really appreciate it. Thank you all so much, and I will be back with an episode next week.